Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the REDX Podcast. I am so glad that you're here today for our conversation with Ruiz. He is a team leader at Miami Lakes, and we talk about his experience with team leading, how he started out in the industry, which is really crazy. He did 62 transactions in his second year, and that was in 2021. So post-pandemic life and what that was like. And then he has built a team of over 75 agents. And so we kind of get into like what he teaches his team and the prospecting methods that he uses along with the lead types that he prefers. And so we have a really good conversation that you can listen to. Before we get into that, we do talk about our REDX Teams platform, which we just barely launched. If you are a team leader or you're on a team, you can check that out on our website and see how we've implemented things that teams need into our platform. And we have a really great offer there for you if you are interested, of course. So just go to redx.com and you can find that there. But other than that, we will get into the conversation with Miner. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the REDX Podcast. I am so glad that you're here. We have a new time guest with us. Miner Ruiz, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
Oh, so good. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm excited to get into your systems, strategies, prospecting stuff, all of the good stuff that we're going to talk about.
All the good stuff that people are scared of.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Oh, so we'll get into that. Miner, before we do, can you give us a little brief intro into who you are for those that don't know you?
Miner Ruiz. I've been in this industry almost 5 years. Started as a solo agent. 2021, I learned what prospecting was. I began prospecting, following up, using a CRM. I ended up, 2021, 62 transactions, 34.5 million in sales closed. And then ever since that time, it was kind of lonely. So I took over a mentorship program. So I started training agents. Before you know it, we were closing 8 to 16 deals. And then at some point decided to open up my own brokerage.
Wow. That is a lot in such a short amount of time.
Yes.
That's awesome. I was thinking like 2021 feels like it was yesterday, but I guess not now.
It does actually.
Several years ago. Wow, that's awesome. So 62 transactions you said in your first year?
That was my second year.
Second year. Okay, yes. Great. So when you first got into real estate, this is post-pandemic-ish, still pandemic-y time. Yes. So talk to me a little bit about like when you first got into real estate, like how was the market and what were the things that you were doing that were working?
So when I first got into the market, it was more of a buyer's market. I was showing per client 10 to 15 homes. There was plenty of inventory. We were getting closing costs with every offer. Pandemic happens, inventory's low, interest rates are low. You really got to send strong offers to close deals, or you got to be the guy on the listing side. Luckily for me, at the end of 2020, I decided I'm going to be a listing agent. So pretty much anything you were putting out in the market was selling.
That's
you
amazing.
Just had to put in the work, which is your prospecting every morning or every day pretty much.
Yeah, listings are the name of the game. And especially like as markets change and things like that, like finding listings is just, it's one of the best strategies, I think, especially when 2020, 2021 happened. That's awesome. So when you started, what did you first start prospecting? Were you prospecting a bunch of different lead types? Did you focus on one?
I started with for sale by owners and expireds, new expireds. I noticed that I was getting beat up a lot with these new expireds because I was starting a call like at 8:30, 9 a.m. I didn't know there was so many crazy agents calling at 7 a.m., 7:30. So by the time that I got on the phone at 8:30, I was getting sent to hell. But I switched my strategy over to FSBOs, and I loved it. It started working more. It took a little more nurturing, but I want to say day 20, day 25, you get those come list me calls, which those are the best.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so that's funny that expired kind of like. Do you not prospect them anymore, or have you picked them back up since?
I do. They are the lowest hanging apple, and they're the people that have the most motivation. They already signed the listing, so they know what the process is like.
Right.
It's just difficult because everyone is on them. So
Yeah.
what we're doing now, we don't call new expireds. We're concentrated more on old expireds. So we do 30 days, we do 3 months, we do a year back, even 2 years back. That's when they're a little more laid back. So now we're just asking questions again. Hey, Haley, tell me what happened 6 months ago. We noticed that you couldn't sell your property. Just wanted to see if you were considering getting back out on the market again.
Do you have a lot of people that are like,
you a story.
Yeah, like, do you have a lot of people that are like, actually, yeah, I think I'm ready to list now? Or what do the conversations sound like?
Most of the times they're going to criticize the agent.
Right.
So then I just
good,
apologize.
Right?
Look, first off, I want to apologize. I didn't get to you sooner. It seems to me like you were having a communication problem or whatever objection they gave me. And then, that's when the presentation starts. So it's a little easier when you're not competing with 200, 300 agents at the time.
Right. Yeah. Expired competition is fierce. That's
Very
awesome.
fierce.
So, and have you seen that when you talk to for sale by owners that conversation's easier? Because I mean, they're very convinced that they don't need an agent. So how are your conversations going with them?
So I actually just got off the phone with one and set up an appointment with them maybe like 10 minutes before we got on.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. You cannot tell them that it's a bad idea. So I normally agree with them. Look, if I were in your shoes, I would do the same. I would try to sell it on my own before trying to find an agent. What I simply want to do is be your backup plan. If you haven't sold your property in 60, 90 days, would you then consider an aggressive agent like myself? And start the conversation from there.
Yeah, so it's not like, hey, I'm better than you. It's, well,
No.
if you're struggling, like, then give me a call. So it's okay. It's a little bit more nurturing than.
And I'll actually bring them value. For example, I like doing previews. So look, I would like to stop by today at 3 p.m., show you some of the marketing strategies that we have. At the same time, I get to see your property, some of the features that it has, and maybe give you some tips that'll help you while trying to sell it on your own. So I concentrate on bringing them value.
So out of the 62 transactions that you did in your second year, how many would you say came from prospecting, like for sale by owners and things like that?
About 50%.
50%.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. So, and that's something that I really love about REDX is if you're a new agent and you don't have like a ton of sphere of influence, or if you just need to hit the ground running and get your first listing and, start building that pipeline, it's the best way to just get in front of homeowners who are looking to list, or who have listed for sale by owners who are trying to sell. It's one of the best ways to just get in front of transaction ready homeowners. And it might seem a little scary, of course, because you're talking to strangers. But so I'm curious, was that scary for you at first too? And if it was, how did you overcome that?
It is. At some point, you just get used to it, though.
Yeah.
So at some point, I want to say from like day 1 to about day 25, you start not caring, right? You start not caring about rejection, and you start concentrating more on their need, right? So, for example, I noticed that a lot of the people that you actually do get signed, I wasn't concentrated on the listing. I was actually concentrated on their story. So why are you selling? Where are you going after the sell? And we tend to be, I want to say scripty, right? Like everyone looks at the script and they follow it to a T. So if someone just told me, hey, the reason I'm selling my property, my husband just got a promotion, I might want to talk about that promotion, congratulate him on that promotion, and find out a little bit more about it, right?
Right.
Most of us tend to be like, okay, so what price are you trying to sell it for? Right after they just gave us that information. So we got to concentrate more on relationships as opposed to just your script.
I like that. It's kind of like sales breath. Like people can tell
100%.
if you're not being genuine, if they only care about getting a deal from you. And that's basically what real estate is, right? It's just people, and you're helping people. And I like that focus. That's awesome. Do you do any circle prospecting?
Yes, we do circle prospecting all the time. Even my people that are not listing agents, they do circle prospecting. And the reason why, you're always going to find a buyer, you're always going to find a tenant, you're always going to find someone who wants to sell. It's the easiest way really to get clients. There's not a list of buyers out there raising their hand saying, hey, I'm ready to buy, call me. There's nowhere you can find them.
I like that because when you're talking about building relationships, that's like circle prospecting is one of the best ways to do that. And even if you aren't, if they're not ready to sell or list or buy right away, you can still add them to your database for when they
Yes.
are, right?
Hmm.
So do you do any of that? Do you do follow up? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So first, we try to not throw garbage into our CRM. So anyone that I had a real
Mm,
estate conversation with and agrees that at some point they're willing to buy, we throw them into our CRM, and now we do that the weekly email,
mm.
which I actually learned from Ricky Cruz. I didn't know it had so much power. So once we started doing it, it became easier, right? Not every email is going to touch someone, but
Mm,
every email that you send lets people know that you're active.
mm. Yeah, I like that strategy too. I mean, because there are so many agents who don't do it's really simple, but because it's so simple, so many agents don't do it, right? And then like if you're just sending out a simple weekly email, you're staying top of mind. So
Yes,
when the conversation when they're ready to do something like a real estate move, then you're already like, "Oh, I get his emails all the time. Like, let me reach out to him," right?
exactly. Yeah, people
Nice.
tend to forget like what the public sees of us. We're like the main point of contact, right? Realtors, we tend to choose the lender, we tend to choose a title company, we tend to choose the inspector. So whenever we're sending emails, like for example, 5 best restaurants in Miami Lakes,
Mm,
uh, 10 best activities to do over the summer with your kids, they're looking at us as the specialist in that neighborhood. So
mm.
we need to continue to do those weekly emails, your posts, your reels, and the phone calls. To me, phone calls are my primary object to get in front of people.
Yes, it is foundational, right? And I
Yeah,
think it's a way for people to not have to worry about where their next listing is coming from, where their next check is
exactly.
coming from, because if you're constantly calling and lead generating, like then you'll always have somebody who is ready to make a move. And if you're sending out weekly emails, if you're following up, like you won't have to worry about that as so much because you're building a pipeline consistently, right?
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I wanna go back to, like, you started a team pretty quickly.
Yes.
What was it, your 3rd year? Your
Third
2nd
year.
year?
Yep.
3rd year? Okay. Which, like, is amazing, and you said it's because you were feeling lonely as a solo agent, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, you come in every day, or sometimes you don't even go into the office. You
Right.
get on your dialer, you put your headphones on, you got your wireless. I got my double screens. You don't talk to anyone for about 2-3 hours. From there, you have lunch, and then you come back and you add everyone to your CRM.
Mm,
That's pretty much your day as a prospector.
right.
So then everyone else is looking at your numbers and they're like, "Wow, what's he doing?" And once they see it, it's pretty boring. But
Yeah.
you know what? Boring is successful.
It works.
Yes,
As long as you're consistent too, because I've talked to a
exactly.
lot of agents who will like pick it up once like things are slow.
Hmm.
And that'll work, like that'll get you a couple deals, but like it won't build a consistent business over time.
Exactly.
And so showing up every day, that's what you did, right?
That's it.
Awesome.
Now I have, so it's gotten to the point here. I wish I would have taken a picture of it. Today I had about 10 agents sitting in the conference room. We call it the shark room. It's 16 by 16, all glass, and they discipline themselves. So if you're late 15 minutes, you owe breakfast or lunch to the whole team. We even have a
Oh,
chat with that team. So they're
that's
holding each other accountable, which at some point they were pretty much dependent on me. Now it's gotten to a point where they're holding each other accountable, and I love it.
wow. So talk to me about how like you have built your team to like what it is now. Where did you start? Like recruiting people or did you start with listing agents, start with different like just tell me how you kind of started your team and then I want to talk about where you're at today.
Yeah. Well, I started with showing agents, TCs. Then from there, as they became better, buyer agents. But again, they were all dependent on me, right? So if I didn't
Right.
have a deal, my showing agent wasn't getting paid, my buyer agent wasn't getting paid. The TC's not, they don't have a transaction. So at some point, I said, how can I multiply myself, right? And the
Mm.
only way you can do it is training people to be better than you. So I have guys right now anywhere between 19 to about 25, 26, and they're killing it.
Mm.
And they're not afraid of refusal. They actually laugh at each other, which is great. So they'll laugh at each other and then they'll continue calling. So at some point, you start building that team, right? So we look at teams like Wolf of Wall Street. We look at teams like Grant Cardone. We look at the movies like Boiler Room. That's kind of the team you want to build. And that's kind of what we said here. Was like, okay, everyone's dressed up. Everyone's in their suit and tie. Everyone's calling on time. They're holding each other accountable. That's really what you want. You want a machine that's running on its own.
Today's podcast is brought to you by REDX for Sale by Owner leads, one of the best lead types to add to your prospecting toolbox. Here's why. First, you know FSBO leads have a high urgency to sell because they're actively attempting to sell on their own right now. Second, many for sale by owners incorrectly price their home and don't know how to effectively market it. That's why they need your agent experience to get their home sold fast and at the best possible price. And finally, REDX delivers the best and newest for sale by owner lead data every single day before any other lead service. This means that you can get a hold of FSBOs before other agents do and increase your chances of listing their home. If you're interested in prospecting for sale by owner leads, sign up today at redx.com/podcast and save $150 on your setup fee. Your business will thank you.
And I think that's what is so great about a team versus being on your own, is because you get that energy and that feeling. Like when you're around other prospectors, like if someone next to you gets an appointment, that fires you up. You're like, oh, I got to get an appointment. I gotta stay up to date with all this stuff. And so that energy just like fuels it. And so I'm sure like you've seen a lot of success just because of the people that you've put on your team, but also just like the motivation that is when you're in. That's why a lot of sales teams for different tech companies or different industries will want their sales teams in office, just because you can just feed off of that energy. Exactly. Because I mean, when COVID happened, so many companies went remote, and so there is a benefit of just being together and like experiencing that camaraderie, which is awesome.
Yeah, there's a reason why these big corporate companies that have that discipline are so great. It's that environment that we're talking about. So I just got back maybe 2 weeks ago from UWM, right? Largest bank for mortgages in the US. Everyone there had a suit and a tie, and you knew who was a team leader, and you would see leaderboards right up on their desk. So you're building accountability, you're building discipline.
Cool. So talk to me, if I'm brand new on your team and I'm going to be a listing agent on your team, what is like the first, like what do you put, like what is my to-do list? Like what do you get me to do on my first day?
All right. So whether you're a listing agent or not, when you're brand new, the first thing we want you to work on is rents, understanding rents. Then from there, we get you in some of the open houses so you can see how you got to communicate with people. And, you know, I don't want any agent to be just a door opener. So I want you to sell the city. I want you to sell the features of the property. I want you to sell everything that's around it. That's great. So a lot of them do study, for example, the middle schools, the high schools that are around there, any new projects that are coming up. So I want you to become a specialist before you even start the calls.
That's good, because I think just getting on a call without any of that is probably not going to be very successful. So exactly. That's awesome. So once you're a specialist, like you know the area, you know how to sell the area and stuff like that, you get them on the phones.
Exactly. So yeah, it becomes much easier for you, right? If I tell you, Haley, I want you to call all your neighbors versus I want you to call someone in my neighborhood that you have no idea what are the price points, what are the activities, it's going to be a lot easier for you. You're going to feel more confident.
Nice. So how do you manage your team and all of the different like lead types? Is everyone calling the same for sale by owners, and like how are you managing your team and their prospecting?
Sometimes we do get into points where we clash with each other, and which is great, right? Like I tell all my people, if we're going to be finalists, I'd rather all of them be from our same team.
Amen.
For the most part, though, they all have like their sections. Like some teams will do Homestead, others will do Fort Lauderdale, others will stick to Miami Lakes. Like I really tell them, try to be a specialist in your area where everyone knows you, where it's a little easier, and start from there. After a while, though, you'll see that a lot of them, they're like, you know what, a house is a house, I'm going to sell it, and they'll start working everywhere, which I don't mind also. but that happens to be more of my top producers, my competitive people.
Nice. When they're like, let's go. I'm ready.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, I'm going to your city now.
I love that. Healthy competition,
Exactly.
That's cool. Awesome. So do you have your own scripts that you teach your team, or do you have them like figure out what they want to say, and talk to me about that a little bit?
All right. So at some point we were using scripts.
Yeah.
Everyone had, different scripts. Mike Ferry, Tom Ferry, Brandon Morenin. After a while I realized it's not about the scripts. It's more about the why, the where, the when, right? Let's concentrate on the client and let's go from there. We still do have, for example, key questions, or we do practice objection handlers. They're all the same. For example, I ask my people on a for sale by owner, what's an objection you're going to get? I don't want to pay commission, right? So get ready for that. On an expired, they're probably going to tell you, you know what? All you agents are the same. You're all garbage. Get ready for that objection. So for the most part, I want to say let's concentrate on the client's needs, and you're going to notice that you start building relationships and you start taking over markets.
Yeah, that's interesting because we were talking about relationships and stuff like that earlier, about really listening to what they're saying and like where they're going, or listening to their story, which I loved. So it's kind of hard to have a script when everybody's story is different, right? Like you kind of want to just talk about them and like their experience. But you're right, like the objections haven't changed in years and years and years. Like you'll get the same ones, but people's stories will change and people's reasons will change. And so you kind of have to adapt to the specific homeowner, right?
Yes. Yeah, you have to adapt, and more than anything, do they need us? I've heard people say, yeah, I can sell ice to an Eskimo. No, you can't. If they don't need it, they don't need it. I'll sell you a fur coat. I'll sell you some boots. I'll sell you some gloves. But first I need to find out, what do you need from me, right? How can I help you?
Okay, yeah, because I'm sure like a lot of people get on the phone and they just try to get over objection over objection, excuse me.
Right.
But like sometimes there's just conditions and you just can't, like they just don't want to move, or there's just nothing that you can do to really overcome that. With that, do you just move on? Do you add them to your database if you have a good conversation? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, I just add them to my database. For example, yesterday we had and I tend to go to the presentations with my crew just so they can see what presentations look like. And yesterday, for example, our main objection or condition was that the client needs the money from the sale to be able to buy a new property.
Right.
Problem is, they haven't been qualified yet. Right. So what did I say? Hey, I'm going to have our lender call you first. Let's take care of this situation. And then we're going to worry about the numbers of your property. Because right now it seems like you don't have the money to put a down payment and closing costs without the sale of your property. So let's concentrate on getting you qualified. Let's get that number right. Does that sound fair? And they told me, yeah, you know what? The reason we're going to go with you no matter what, even though we're not signing today, which I didn't put pressure on them, you're the only one that actually listened to our needs and didn't put a contract in my face. So they should be at 4 p.m. They're actually going to connect with our lender and they're going to get qualified, or they're at least going to get the documents that we need.
Wow. Okay. That is listening to their needs, because you're right. Like, and that also saves you time, because if they end up not getting qualified or something happens, like you didn't go through everything to just, it's not going to work out, or they're not going to be able to buy. So that's great. And I love that, like, someone picked you just because of that. Like that sets you apart from so many other agents who are just like money hungry and just are like, don't treat the person like an actual person.
Exactly. And I don't think agents notice it sometimes because of the scripts. They're like, hey, you have to close the business. Remember to close the business. And you kind of come off the wrong way, where it's like you don't care. Right?
Yeah, I think.
Why am I asking you to sign a listing when you told me you have another problem right now?
That's where like call recording gets beneficial, because then you can actually listen to yourself, because that is what's crazy is when I know it's cringy to like listen to your own calls, but it's so important because you can see exactly where you went wrong or how you sound, if you're sounding too pushy. Like that is one of like the best tools I would say, is to actually just listen to yourself And if you wouldn't like talking to you, then like no, none of the homeowners are going to want to talk to you. And so if you don't want to be pushed and stuff like that, like that could be a really cool tool. So, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So another question I had for you was, what kind of schedule do you follow, or do you have your agents follow? Like, because I know you said you started calling around 8:30.
Yes.
Is that like what you typically do?
Yeah, because normally I like calling for sale by owners. So
Yeah.
normally I'll tell my crew 8:30 to about 11, 12. And it's not that it's the best time, right? Like a lot of people ask me, what's the best answer rate? My best answer rate is actually from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. But how many agents are actually going to sit here in the office Monday through Friday and call from 5 to 7, right? So I just tell them, look, just get your calls done and have one session. Normally it's Wednesdays. Have one session done at night. Yeah. And then we also have, what's called, I tell them, recycle your numbers. Because a lot of them will tell me, and this is why I love REDX. I look at the posts and I see, okay, you made 400 calls. You had 20 contacts. And they come telling me, no, I'm already out of numbers. What do you mean? You only did 20 contacts, which tells me you have 380 clients that haven't answered their phone. So tomorrow on the Wednesday session, make sure you add them.
Yeah, that visibility, like it'll get you your numbers show.
Yes.
Minor, I don't know if you've seen anything about our new Teams platform that we're coming out with, but we that is something that we're implementing into our new Teams platform, is like that visibility into like what your agents are doing and what their numbers are.
Right.
And that is as a powerful tool, I think, just because like Pulse, like you can see all of your different agents and what they're doing. Not only to help you like see where they're struggling, and like if their conversion rate is really low, like then okay, we need to look into your calls. What are you saying on the calls and stuff like that? Versus like if they're not having quality conversation, stuff like that. And so that's awesome that as a team leader you can see, I think you need to do more dials, you need to do this, you need to have better contacts or stuff like that. So
exactly. Yeah, this is when we find out, when we're looking at numbers, we find out the trends, right? If I see you have a high number of contacts, but for whatever reason you're not getting those appointments, let's listen to your phone call, because there's something that the client's not liking, right? I have other people, they have low contact rate, but their appointment rate is pretty high. And also their listing rate is pretty high, which shows me they're a closer.
Yeah.
So you kind of see it, all right? I see who's bad on calls, who's not a closer once they get to the appointment, which tells me there's something you're doing wrong at the appointment. And then you see who's the closer. So these numbers, like the post, is very important. What we call the KPIs. These are the most important numbers for any business. This is where you see the trends.
Nice. Do you have them also call their sphere of influence or anything with their actual database?
Yeah, so a lot of my new agents, what I tell them is, look, go on Instagram, make sure you get on WhatsApp, make sure you create lists, let everybody know that you're a real estate agent now, right? Because you don't want to be that secret agent.
No.
A lot of people get mad, oh, my aunt just listed. Yeah, but did your aunt know that you were an agent? No. Why didn't you tell her? I didn't want to seem like I was trying to sell her, like sell her, okay? And that's exactly why she didn't pick you. Yeah. She didn't know.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like if you know the value that you bring, then you're like, oh, my family, my neighbors, like they need to know so I can help them because I'm going to be the best one for them. Right?
Exactly.
You got to be confident. And you're I know I like talked to an agent the other day that they were like, yeah, my neighbor put up a for sale sign and I'm not the agent. And I was like, did they know? Like,
do they even know your name? Do they know you're an agent?
They're your next door neighbor, but like they went with a different agent. Like that's not their fault. That is your fault. There's something that you didn't bring that made them feel like they needed to go with somebody else, or they didn't even know you were an agent, right?
Exactly. Which is something that I talk about with expireds, right? Which is another objection hand that I tell my people. Every expired, what do they tell you? Hey, are you going to bring me a buyer? Why didn't you bring me a buyer when I was on the market? Well, you know what? I didn't know you were on the market. I never got an email from your agent. I never got a postcard from your agent. I never got invited to an open house. So I had no idea that you were even on the market until now.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh yeah. Well, Minor, we're almost out of time here, but I wanted to get maybe some final advice from you, either for an agent who is struggling right now. Like I think we saw a stat that it was like 57% of agents haven't even closed a deal this year, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
that's
The market's kind of
very good.
crazy. So if you have any advice for an agent, and then also any advice for someone who wants to become a team leader.
Number one, I would say be consistent. For any new
Mm,
agent, be consistent. Make sure you post on all your social media platforms that you are an agent. Hand out your business cards to everyone. I tell my people here, at least 5 people minimum a day need to get your business card or your contact card.
mm,
Right.
mm-hmm,
And as far as team leaders, for team leaders, I would say really work on your patience, because most of the times what I hear from people is, you know what, my team leader doesn't have time, or my team leader just brushed me off. And it's because we as team leaders, we either don't record it or we don't have the patience. So as a team leader, I would say also be consistent, hold your people accountable, and find out what's the learning method for that agent, right? Some people are
mm.
good live, others they'll just get a recorded webinar. Others, they pretty much learn on their own. They'll just come and ask you a question whenever they need you. We have to find what they need from us and present it to them that way.
I love that. Minor, thank you so much for coming on the
Thank you,
podcast
Haley.
today. It has been awesome to talk to you. If people are interested in like or want to ask you questions or anything like that, is there an Instagram handle or something where people could find you?
Yes, it'll be Minor Ruiz Realtor. They can reach me there on Instagram. If not, they can simply email me. It'll be minorr33@gmail.com.
Awesome.
And
Okay.
like, we have accountability groups for everyone, so we can definitely help.
Awesome. Yes. Okay. We'll have all of that below for those that want to connect with Minor. Thank you so much, Minor, for coming on. We'll have to
Thank
have
you,
you
Haley.
back on. This was such a great conversation. I want to talk more about just like your life as a team leader and stuff like that. But
Definitely.
of course, thank you again. And we will see everybody same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.